to bring in people.
Yeah.
I happen to have a pretty large network of people that I know that love Cleveland and love the kids, want to invest in them. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring this program in. I'm going to bring this person in to talk to them. Like, for example, we're talking about the Lost Boys of Sudan. These are boys who survived a war, and came to America to live eventually. This is way back in 2001, 2002.
Way back. Yeah.
There are still surviving these boys living here in Ohio.
Wow.
And I found out from another teacher that there's one that's local, that if I was able to get, his connection, his communication, I could bring him in and talk to my kids. And I really wanted to, and I unfortunately was not able to because it was virtual, and I never was able to get connected with that other teacher again because she got transferred. It was a whole thing. But
Okay.
I love bringing in speakers, even virtual museum trips. Actually, the virtual thing is kind of cool too because you can do all these things. Like you can take them all these different places, and a lot of museums and nonprofits and community organizations have opened up doors for free for educators to be like, hey, we know right now it's tough, so we're going to open this up and you can use all these resources for free. It's just like there's so many that we become like inundated with it, and so educators are so tired. They're just so tired, and we're like, oh my god, we just gotta get through the day sometimes.
Yeah.
And the curriculum, it's important, and representation is important, but there are absolutely days where I've had to just be like, you know what, I showed up today.
And when the kids show up too,
and they show
that's
up. And
amazing.
I always say showing up is half the battle. Not to derail a little bit there, but I think for me, being a role model is just being there, being genuine. The kids will sniff out someone who's inauthentic in a minute, because to them, everyday survival, and you gotta be real. Like they're gonna know if you're fake. They're gonna know if you're faking it, and I talk to them like I'm a human. Like I have real life conversations. I'm vulnerable with them. No, they don't know my everyday personal stuff. They don't need to know that. There's boundaries. Boundaries are important.
They are important.
But I share funny little stories. Like today, I came into my class, and it was dead quiet. And I'm like, are y'all sleeping? You okay?
Hello?
I was like, man, I know it's rainy outside today, and it's kind of a dreary day. And let me tell you, I would rather be home under my covers watching some movies or trash TV. And they all looked at me like, what? I was like,
Miss Lambing, what?
welcome. Let's play a game. Let's wake up a little bit. So I think, we find ways to take a curriculum and use the parts that are useful and throw away the parts that are not. And I thankfully have a lot of freedom to do that in my school. So
that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful that they give you those tools to really relate to the students and bring the information more into their lives and have it to be kind of catered to them almost. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. So Miss Lambing, we are aware that sometimes your students' basic needs are not met. How do you go about responding to this and trying to help them?
Okay, especially in post-pandemic COVID times, this has really come to light because, the inequities in education and the lack of access that our students and their families have had to basic resources has really just been exposed in a whole new different way. There are so many things that, frankly, the school doesn't have the resources to support with. Like, there's a huge housing crisis in Cleveland, and that is an issue that we can't control. We can advocate for. We can provide education. We can provide a safe space, a warm space for kids to be at during the day. But we have like a problem of homelessness, right? And even though there are some places that said they weren't going to kick families out, guess what? That was a lie. They've evicted families. They turned off their light. They turned off their electricity. So then what do? And then the kids don't always want to tell you about it because it's full of shame. It's a shameful thing. Some are a little bit more upfront with you, and you have to build that trust, right? So how I respond, it depends on what it is. I teach older elementary kids, so they're the ones that often are taking on the responsibility of taking care of their younger siblings while their parents are working 2 to 3 jobs or like crazy hours just to make ends meet. And when I see that happening, like, I will never forget the day this year where we had a virtual class and I had them all have their cameras on, and I had 3 different 8th grade students with a baby in their lap. I'm like, what is happening? And they're all like, they're kids, they're little brothers or cousins or nephews or whatever. And I'm like, why are you the one that's like taking care of this baby you get a baby on your lap while you're also supposed to be learning?
And you're a baby yourself.
And you're a baby. And it's wild to me because what happens with our kids is that they're dealing with such adult issues at home that when they come to school, they almost like go back. There's a word like
regression.
Regress. Thank you. They regress back into like this childlike self almost because they're safe and they're comfortable, so they're going to be goofy. And like I like that I can provide a space where they feel like they can do that. But then there's some that never shuts off because, they're dealing with it. I have a lot of kids who have a lot of unresolved anger, which is, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a professional, so I never ever diagnose, but I know enough and I've read enough and dealt with it myself that it often trickles into anxiety and depression and what looks on the outside to be apathy. And we're like, why does this kid not care? Why is this kid only coming to school twice a month or once a week or whatever the issue is? And like, we have so many things on our plates as teachers that it's like, am I going to go out of my way after my set hours to work to communicate however I need to communicate with the parents and family to get this kid and figure it out? Custody battles are a big issue in our school district and in my school, and so we have to worry about that. Like, I could get a hold of this one kid's dad. He says, I give up custody to him. I'm like, okay, well, he didn't want to be bothered. He's the only number that we have on file. So like, that's a whole other problem that we have. A lot of the basic needs, like food, like we provide free breakfast, and they give like take home dinner sometimes to the younger kids. That's
good.
I know there are some teachers and leadership that will provide like clothes and hygiene products and like laundry detergent to our kids. We have a lot of community partners that donate to us for that purpose. I'm actually working with what is our in-school suspension person. We call it the planning center, but she's incredible. She's very passionate about this as well. And I want to create what's called like a boutique student resource center, because like I didn't grow up with much either, and like I was on food stamps. Food stamps is something that a lot of our kids are familiar with. And so, because the food stamps, when the schools reopened, they went down like a lot, and they didn't realize that, a lot of them. And then suddenly there were kids going hungry again. So we had to deal with that. And the school lunches are not exactly what the kids want to eat. So most of my kids just don't eat lunch. They'll come in, I'll be like, they have like a bag they get like at the corner store, the convenience store. They just got like a bunch of like hot chips, hot fries, candy, sugary stuff that they can get at the convenience store. And I'm like, why do you have a whole bag of this every day? Why don't I eat the lunch? Why don't you eat the lunch? It's gross. Well, yeah, I wouldn't touch that lunch. I don't blame the kids.
I mean, honestly, when I was in high school, it was gross. So,
I mean, yeah. But it's free lunch, nobody has to pay for the lunch. Teachers don't ever eat the lunch, but it's provided for free for the kids. But, a lot of them just don't eat it. And I think it's easy to be like, well, that's their fault. That's their problem. They should just eat what they, take what you've been given. Well, that's just like, why would you settle for something that's not really nutritious, or maybe just doesn't taste good? You don't want to eat it. So there's an avenue of ways. Like, we have a lot of programs that can step in and they can, move kids forward. We have to contact child services at certain points, we are mandated reporters. So
of course,
if I ever have a suspicion or a kid comes to me and tells me that someone's, hurting them in any way, and then at the high school level with my older girls, you know, it becomes more complicated with like pregnancies and like safe sex and things like that. So
also very important. Yeah.
How you respond depends on what resources you have available.
Right.
And to be honest, even though I've been in the district for 4 years, I'm not always familiar with who do I go to. I don't know where to send this kid.
Right. It's not always clear what they need, you know?
It's not always clear what they need, and so I usually just go to like a school leadership or somebody that I trust that maybe has been working there longer. I'm like, hey, this is a situation. Oh, what do I do? Oh, what do I do?
Yeah. Help.
Like, could we get this kid in line? And then we also have a school psychiatrist who, you know, steps in. They offer, you know, mental health services for families, but, you know, that only goes when, you know, kids have to get parental permission to get therapy. And so there's a big not misunderstanding. I think it does come from misunderstanding, but there's a lot of hesitancy to go to therapy in the Black community, from what I've learned, and like, especially because like a lot of our kids, like, it's every day is like survival. Like, what do you mean you gotta talk to somebody about your feelings? Just, you're too busy. You're too busy to have to be depressed. Like, you just work through it.
Right. When you're in that constant survival mode, sometimes those feelings just get pushed down, and you know, you don't really need to deal with them if you're surviving, you know.